Hey, I'm Matt with Meat Church. Let's make skillet cornbread. This is a generational recipe. This is my granny from Alabama, June, who taught me to cook. Both my grandmothers actually taught me to cook. I have one in Tennessee and one in Alabama. But my grandmother in Alabama made cornbread at almost every meal. They both made cornbread, but my granny made it all the time. It's probably the #1 thing I remember her cooking. It's very simple to make. It means a lot to me. It's a very simplistic recipe, but cornbread is a cornerstone of Southeastern cuisine where I'm from. And we make it with no sugar. If you want to add sugar, that's certainly up to you. You can always, like I say, make my recipes your own. So let's jump in. We call it skillet cornbread because we're gonna make it on a cast iron skillet. And I've got a Traeger running over here at 400 degrees with a skillet in it. It's heating up. So I will say my grandmother never made cornbread in a Traeger, that's for sure. But you know me, I think everything tastes better cooked outside. The weather's great out here, so this is gonna be memorable. I've got 2 tablespoons of shortening that I'm throwing in here at first, and I'll explain this when I talk about cast iron in a minute, but you wanna get that melted down. So I'm gonna throw this back in while we mix up our cornbread. We call this skillet cornbread, comes in a cast iron skillet. It's the best way to make cornbread because you wanna preheat your skillet. That's what will give you those crispy edges and the crispy bottom, which makes the superior cornbread. So we've had that in there heating up. Your cook time and temperatures will vary depending on what you're using, but I usually start at around 400 depending on if you're doing it inside, outside, so you can kind of play with that. But I mentioned this recipe is pretty simplistic, so let's jump in. We've got 2 cups of self-rising cornmeal, a 1.5 cups of buttermilk, and 1 egg. Now you want to mix it all together. All right, once it's all combined, if you feel like it's a little too thick, you can always add a little shot of water, like a tablespoon or so. Now we're gonna get that skillet back out of the Traeger. And something my granny always did was she poured at least half of this shortening back in. I'm gonna thoroughly combine that, and then we're gonna pour it in and then throw it in the Traeger. All right, in the skillet we go. Got all of our batter in the skillet, so let's talk about cooking. By the way, this is a #7 Griswold vintage skillet. I'm a huge lover of cast iron. You guys follow me for a while, you know I'm a cast iron collector, basically. My buddy Tuffy Stone told me a couple weeks ago he wished that cast iron skillets came with journals so you could know who owned them and everything that was cooked in them, because this should be about 90 years old. And I certainly don't know who had it in the beginning. So super cool story to think about that, and obviously think about my grandparents when I cook stuff like this. But this is a #7. If you're going with a bigger skillet, you may want to increase the size of the batter so the cornbread is not too thin. That's just kind of a personal thing. My granny cooked it 400 degrees in the oven for about 40 minutes. I do about 45 minutes, but you're really just looking for it to brown, and we'll test it with a toothpick at the end to make sure that it's done. All right, it's been 45 minutes. Let's check on the cornbread. Browning nicely. Look at that. All right, first thing I do is I'm gonna check it with a toothpick. Nothing comes off on it, it's clean, so I know it's done. It's brown to my liking. And then I like to top it with butter. You can use whatever butter you want. I'm gonna use an ancho chili butter. And since it's warm, I'm gonna kind of rub it around here, and I'm gonna leave it on the melt, get something to drink, and then dig in. Let's give this a shot. That. See, crispy bottom, crispy edges, that's why you preheat the skillet. Well, that's nice and fluffy. You can see where the butter's melted down in there. I mean, again, I said a staple of Southeastern cuisine. People didn't have a lot of money and had to make things go a long way, so here we go. That's delicious. I definitely know my granny would be proud of that I'm making something she used to make all the time. I'm not gonna lie, I normally will slice this open and put a very unhealthy amount of butter in it as well. So I'm just trying to be quick for video, but that's the way I like it. And you know, I grew up never having sugar in it. I said that at the very beginning. Anytime I go to a restaurant and the cornbread has sugar, it tastes like dessert. So that's just kind of a thing for me. I'd love to hear from you. I'm very curious. Is it, you know, just regional Southeast that it's no sugar? Do you put sugar in it in other places? Have you even heard of cornbread if you're up north? This is delicious, easy to make. Now I can see why she made it every single meal for sure. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central, we drop these no-nonsense, straightforward how-to cooking videos on this channel. I'll see you guys next week.